Yeah. But an interesting one is I followed Bob Lazar. I was right into Bob Lazar
Bob.
when Bob Lazar was the outcast. Like
Aye.
people were like, shot his credibility down.
Aye.
The guys, you had to put aside the character assassination that was put on him. And I remember thinking, this is a fascinating story. And it was something about the way he came across. I thought, I don't buy into this narrative about him. I don't think they're telling it. I don't think this seems like what they're saying about this guy being a complete lunatic, fraud, and the things that he did. I just thought, nah, it doesn't add up.
You know, I think sometimes as well now, a story can be that far-fetched that it has to be, there has to be something in it. It's that ridiculous. Where would this idea have came from? There must be something there, concrete in it, in order for Ken, because some of the shit as well, that especially how he comes out with, you couldn't just make it up off the top of your head. It's that far away for anything else that there has to be some truth in it. And then as the years go on and more shit comes out, you're like, all right, maybe Bob wasn't full of shit.
Yeah. Well, he's been vindicated by many things.
Was he actually?
He's been vindicated. So some of the list of things that happened was he'd said that he worked on the propulsion system. So they called it the sport model. It was a 59-foot disc, and it was tested at S4. So S4 is within the Nevada test range, and most people know Area 51, but this thing was carved into the mountain. And he says, look, there was 9 of them there, and I was responsible for working on the propulsion system. It was all contained. Nobody could talk to anybody else. You had a buddy, and you had your supervisor, and that was it. And he was figuring out what this was, and he says that there was an element that was part of this propulsion system that wasn't on our periodic table. So they called it element 115. And Bob goes on to explain it defied the laws of physics.
Yeah.
So he says that these are the things that we couldn't understand, because what we know about physics, this was out with it.
Fucking cancelled it all.
Yeah, and he so that was around 89 that Bob Lazar came out with this. So it's outrageous stuff. They're flying a UFO. It's an extraterrestrial craft. It's doing incredible maneuvers. It's flying over a test range. He's got some of his pals down to witness it, to make sure that he's not just making this up.
Yeah.
He's explained about the inside of it. He's explained all these details about the UFO. And to 1989, just think of the technology then. You didn't have CDs.
No,
right? You didn't have a CD.
Yeah, floppy disk.
Like, you go and talk to a kid, they're like, what's a CD? They didn't even have CDs back then. This is the type of technology that they had. And he came out and he says, look, it's propelled by this element, and we don't know it. So people are just like, nonsense. 2016, guess what they got in the at CERN at the Hadron Collider, or the Hadron Collider, the big, steel tube.
The thing in Switzerland.
Yeah, the big propulsion tube where they can fire things around the...
Yeah, the antimatter thing.
I can't remember what it's called.
I think you're right, the particle collider.
Particle accelerator.
That's it, there you go.
It's a huge particle accelerator. And they got a very brief isotope of element 115, and it's now in the periodic table.
Boom.
And Bob Lazar knew about it in 89. And here's what he said, just on the topic of what we were discussing earlier on. So think of the period, height of the Cold War, Americans versus the Soviet Union. Yeah. And Bob was like, the S4, we called them the Ruskies, the Russians. They were there. So they were collaborating on, like,
it's in a partnership.
Like, what do you think this is? So they had their wherever they got the UFOs, whatever they'd found in their territory, and they were comparing notes, and they've swapped.
Oh, they had some too.
So, the Russian ones are big. There's when the fall of the KGB, there was the former officers were selling, state secrets, and one of the ones that Nick Pope investigated. So Nick Pope was the guy that worked in the Ministry of Defence on essentially the UFO desk.
Okay.
And he went in 1985 or 1984. He says he worked 26 years in the ministry, and he says, look, went in completely skeptical, didn't believe a thing. Nah, I'm just there to go and explore what the plausible reasons is. He says, and 26 years later, he's like, without a shadow of a doubt, there's 100% aliens. He says everything he's seen, everything he recorded, everything he took in, without a doubt. And he talks about when the Western intelligence got the documentation of the, can't remember if it was Spetsnaz or whatever the special forces were at the KGB. Spetsnaz divers were diving in a Russian lake, and they came across these essentially extraterrestrials that were underwater, and it scared the living daylights out of the divers.
It's fucking good, eh?
And they had, have you heard of submersible, unidentified submersible objects, a USO?
So basically an underwater UFO.
You've got a Russian submarine captain that's tracking an unidentified submersible object traveling at 230 knots underwater. Wow. And it's like the Russian captain, the guy's shouting out, so you can imagine it in the submarine. Captain, you've got the guy tracking it, shouting at the speed, and the Russian captain's like, nah, it can't be right.
Because what does our shit move at? Are we in double digits with our subs?
I mean, if you can get a sub to move at 30, 40 knots, you'd be delighted. I mean, even like you've got such a drag resistance in the water that it's difficult to get something to move that fast. And you've got an object that's making turns at
10 times the
230
speed.
knots. I'll be in the ballpark of 260 miles an hour.
That's frightening.
Like airspeed.
Yeah.